Jeremiah chapter 18, Jeremiah is discouraged. He's a prophet. The people don't want to hear him. He has this message he knows needs to be told, and nobody wants to hear it. And so he's praying one morning for direction and for help and guidance, and I'm sure that was a prayer of desperation. The Lord answers his prayer in a voice and says, "Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I'll cause thee to hear my words." And so he gets up and he goes down and watches a potter work, and after maybe a couple of good pots, he sees what he describes as the pot being marred at the hands of the potter, which means flawed. It was somehow imperfect, and the pot failed and it turned into a mess. The potter cuts the clay from the wheel, goes back to his work table and re-wedges it, and then brings it back and starts with the centering process again. So a potter has to begin with that centering process to bring everything into center. All the pieces that are flapping around being obnoxious have to come into the point of being at one with the potter and being centered by him. It requires patience from the potter. It requires physical force. It requires some humility in the clay. Occasionally I run into clay that has lumps and bits in it that are uncooperative. The clay has to recognize that it's in the hands of someone that knows its potential better than the clay does itself. At that point, after we have laid that foundation, then we can begin to grow. And that's really where growth begins. But if you move forward without being completely centered, your pot never has a chance of being centered. So being centered on Christ is important, but being centered by Christ is even more important, and allowing him to shape our lives every day. There's really a lot of beauty in the idea of working with the Lord and creating a space for us in our lives where we are reliant wholly upon him. We're not reliant upon our parents and their testimonies. We're not reliant upon our bishop and his testimony. Where we have a one-on-one relationship with our potter, with our Savior. And then the voice of the Lord comes to Jeremiah again and says, "Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hands, so are ye in my hands."